January 12, 1967. Northern outskirts of Cu Chi District, South Vietnam. The morning mist hangs low over the tree line as the 1st Platoon of the 25th Infantry Division pushes through the underbrush, their boots sinking slightly into the damp red soil. The sun hasn't yet burned away, the chill leaving a haze that seems to muffle every sound except the faint clicking of Staff Sergeant Raymond Keller's M16 safety check. He moves carefully, scanning the jungle floor as if it might suddenly swallow him whole. And in Cu Chi it very well might. To his left, Private Oscar Delgado lifts his boot from a patch of soil that looks no different from the rest until Keller spots it. A faint line, the slightest discoloration. Almost imperceptible unless you'd been trained to see it. Delgado frees. The private doesn't breathe. Keller kneels, brushing the dirt aside with 2 gloved fingers until a bamboo lattice reveals itself. The air beneath it is cool, rising in a thin, quiet draft. A hole. A tunnel entrance freshly concealed. The jungle seems to grow still around them. Lieutenant Mark Hanley steps forward, pushing aside a low-hanging vine. Is that what I think it is? Keller nods. NVA, VC, one of their underground routes. Hanley exhales slowly. Everyone has heard the stories. Tunnels that stretch for miles. Fighting positions, armories, hospitals hidden deep beneath their feet. But hearing the stories is one thing. Standing above the dark throat of one is another. A bird calls sharply in the distance. The men flinch. Corporal Jensen moves behind Keller, his voice low. "Sir, this is fresh. They were here recently." Delgado, still frozen in place, whispers, "Sir, what if they're still down there?" Hanley looks down at the hole as if weighing its hunger. Then we're about to find out. He signals the point man. Tunnel rat. All eyes shift toward Specialist Tommy Minnow Keenan, a wiry kid from Pennsylvania, barely old enough to shave. He carries no pack, only a flashlight, a .45 Colt pistol, and a coil of rope. A gas mask hangs from his belt, though everyone knows the tunnels often choke with air too foul for even filters to save you. Keenan steps forward, swallowing hard. He shines his flashlight into the hole. The beam disappears almost instantly, swallowed by blackness. The earth beneath their feet hums with possibility. With threat, Keenan squeezes himself into the entrance, boots scraping the dirt. Keller and Jensen lower him slowly by the rope until his helmet dips from sight. A moment later, his voice echoes faintly from below, bottom of the shaft. It splits 2 ways, going forward. Hanley crouches near the entrance, listening. You can hear Keenan breathe. You can hear the scrape of his pistol bumping the packed clay. You can hear the faint rustle as he squeezes through tunnels barely wider than his shoulders. Then silence. Keenan Hanley calls quietly. No reply. The rope twitches. Jensen grips it hard. He's signaling. 3 tugs. Keller's eyes widen. He found something. Deep beneath their boots, Keenan's flashlight beam dances across a network that no American drill manual ever prepared him for. The tunnel's walls are smooth, reinforced. The air is stale, but not deadly. And ahead, he sees it. A wooden hatch. Footprints. Fresh. He raises his pistol. Above ground, Hanley tightens his jaw. Pull him up. The men begin hauling the rope. The earth spits Keenan back out, dust clinging to his face and uniform. He gasps as if the air stings his lungs. "What's down there?" Hanley asks. Keenan wipes his eyes. "Sir, it's not one tunnel. It's a whole damn network." Keller stands. "How big?" Keenan shakes his head slowly. "Bigger than anything we've seen. Reinforced walls, branching passages. Looked like storage rooms. Could have been more. Could have been a hospital, an armory. I don't even know." It just kept going. The jungle seems to close in tighter around them. Every root, every mound of soil suddenly feels like camouflage for a sprawling underworld. Hanley looks westward toward the hazy horizon where artillery thunders faintly. Command said this area was cleared last month. Keller laughs once humorless. "Sir, they could be living under our damn fire bases and we'd never know." A distant rumble rolls through the canopy. Not artillery, not thunder, something collapsing underground, or maybe movement, heavy movement. Battalion-sized, some say capable of slipping beneath positions like ghosts emerging where least expected. Hanley shoulders his rifle. Mark the entrance. We'll call for engineers. But even as he gives the order, you can feel it, the eerie presence of eyes watching from somewhere below, hidden behind layers of earth. The ground is no longer just ground. It is a battlefield. It is a fortress. It is an entire world. And the Americans have only just brushed its surface. January 12, 1967, Cu Chi District, South Vietnam. The engineers arrived just after midday, their boots sinking in the same red soil that swallowed and returned Minnow Keenan only hours ago. The jungle humidity presses against them like a hot, wet blanket. Captain Harold Bishop, the senior combat engineer, wipes sweat from his brow as he crouches beside the concealed entrance. It's not just a hole, Bishop murmurs. This is architecture. Lieutenant Hanley nods. So you've seen something like this? Bishop glances up with a grim half-smile. Not even close. The rest of the men, infantry engineers and a few shaken replacements, stand in a tight ring as Bishop's team widens the entrance. Careful, precise work. No sudden moves. Every inch is suspect. The Viet Cong are notorious for lacing their tunnels with punji pits, tripwires, grenade traps, and false floors. The smallest misstep can tear a man apart in seconds. When the opening is finally large enough, Bishop motions for his lead sapper, specialist Grant Twitch Lawson, a man with nerves so steady they once said he could disarm a mine with a toothpick. Twitch lowers himself into the hole as Keenan had earlier, but this time the men above feed down more equipment. Rope, chalk markers, air hose, gas mask, spare batteries. Hanley leans down. Lawson mark everything, every turn. You see something unfamiliar, you tag it before you blink. Twitch replies, "Roger that, sir." Within seconds, he vanishes into the earth. The jungle returns to an uneasy quiet. The only sound is the metallic clatter from the engineer's tools and the occasional distant rattle of small arms fire from another quadrant of the district. Minutes stretch. Then 10. Then 20. Bishop kneels near the rope-gloved hands, resting on it as if trying to read vibrations like a telegraph. Finally, the rope tugs once, then twice, then 3 times in rapid succession. Bishop looks up sharply. He's found an open chamber. The engineers exchange looks. A chamber means infrastructure. Infrastructure means planning. Planning means this is no temporary hideout. Bishop gestures to Keenan. "Minnow, you're next." Keenan hesitates, but only for a moment. "Yes, sir." He slips back into the same darkness that nearly swallowed him before. The rope jerks as he descends, and Bishop signals 2 more sappers to follow. Only when all 3 are halfway down into the tunnel does Hanley speak. "You think it's bigger than we imagined." Bishop exhales slowly. "Lieutenant, if it's what I suspect, we're standing on top of an entire city." Inside the tunnel, Keenan crawls on elbows, the clay brushing against his uniform with gritty insistence. Dust falls into his hair. His flashlight cuts through thick darkness, illuminating walls packed tight and smooth. A hand-painted arrow in black charcoal marks where Twitch passed earlier. The air grows warmer, damp, human. Then voices. Keenan's pulse jumps. He freezes, raising his pistol. The whispers echo faintly, not English, not close enough to pinpoint. Vietnamese, calm, conversational. He motions the others forward quietly, pointing toward a reinforced wooden door built into the wall. It's crafted from thick, interlocked planks, far more sophisticated than anything they've seen in tunnel warfare training. Twitch examines it, whispering ventilation systems behind this wall. That's how they breathe down here. Keenan leans closer, listening. More voices. Movements. Someone drags something heavy across the floor. Twitch's beam catches something farther down the branching tunnel. A slab of concrete. A support beam made of steel. The others stare. "Jesus," Keenan mutters. "How deep does this go?" Another sound echoes down the corridor, a clatter of metal. Then footsteps approaching. Back, Twitch hisses. The Americans press themselves against the wall guns drawn, but muffled flashlights switched off. They wait in absolute blackness, listening to bootsteps grow louder. The footsteps halt mere feet from their position. A match flares briefly in the darkness. Someone lights a cigarette. The ember glows like a tiny sun in the void. Keenan's finger curls on the trigger. Twitch places a steadying hand on his arm. The unknown man exhales, smoke murmurs something, and walks away. The sound of his steps fades into the tunnel maze. Keenan's breath shakes. When they finally crawl back toward the entrance shaft, hearts pounding, lungs burning, Twitch mutters the only words any of them can manage. This isn't a tunnel. He wipes sweat from his brow. This is a damn underground metropolis. Above ground, when the engineers resurface, covered in clay and trembling from adrenaline, Bishop meets them with a hard stare. Well, Twitch swallows. Captain, what we saw down there, they could move entire battalions through those tunnels. Maybe more. The realization settles over the men like a fog. Vietnam isn't just being fought in the jungles. It's being fought beneath them. January 13th, 1967, Cu Thai District, South Vietnam. The next morning begins with a restless sun rising through a blanket of smoke drifting from artillery impacts miles away. Lieutenant Hanley and Captain Bishop gather their combined teams around the newly revealed tunnel entrance. The air feels heavier than usual, as if the earth itself resents what the Americans uncovered yesterday. Hanley scans the assembled men. All right, listen up. We go in slower today. We map, we document, we confirm. No heroics. These tunnels aren't a rabbit warren, they're infrastructure. Treat them like enemy barracks. Minnow Keenan stands at the front, face streaked with clay from the previous descent. He tightens the strap on his helmet. Sir, we're going back to where Twitch heard movement. Bishop shakes his head. First, we map the upper levels. Anything past 50 meters from the main shaft becomes dangerous without ventilation markers. Twitch Lawson adjusts his flashlight. Assuming they haven't moved or booby-trapped everything overnight, a hush passes over the group. Everyone knows it's a possibility. One by one, the team lowers themselves into the opening. Keenan leads, sliding fast down the rope before the stale subterranean air envelops him. He clicks his flashlight on. The beam cuts through a suffocating void of packed clay walls, tiny insects, and the faint scent of sweat embedded into the very earth. The floor is smooth. Too smooth. Worn down by countless feet over countless months. The first chamber they reach is low, barely enough for a man to crouch. A small alcove branches off the left tunnel, containing a cluster of bamboo poles, food scraps, and a half-burned oil lamp. Rest Point, Twitch mutters. Probably used by couriers. Keenan shines his light farther ahead. They've been down here recently. That rice is fresh. The tunnel slopes downward. Sweat gathers instantly on the men's backs as the temperature rises. The deeper levels always feel like stepping into a furnace. After 10 meters, they find the first ventilation shaft, cleverly angled to disguise rising hot air. Its opening is hidden under a termite mound above ground. Ingenious engineering nature used as camouflage, Sergeant Keller whispers. They built an entire HVAC system down here. Twitch smirks. I've seen high schools with worse airflow. As they press deeper, the tunnel widens. Splits. Rejoins. Twists in impossible ways. It defies logic. Defies intuition. At times, it feels like the earth is playing tricks on them, shifting behind their backs. Then they reach the wooden hatch Keenan saw the day before. It looks ordinary, just planks tied together. But Twitch taps it with a gloved knuckle. Reinforced, packed with mud and metal fragments, designed to stop gas, maybe even blast pressure. Keenan's voice drops. Sir, behind this is where we heard voices. Hanley kneels beside the hatch. His hand slides along the edge. Not booby-trapped, not locked, just waiting. Open it, he orders quietly. Twitch and Keenan pry it upward. The hinges creak softly. Dust rains down. The chamber beyond opens like a hidden lung. A hollow space big enough for 20 men. The ceiling rises high, almost enough to stand fully upright. Beds made of bamboo line one wall. A table carved from a single log sits in the center. Papers lie strewn across it. Keenan steps forward. This is a command post. Twitch shines his beam across the far side of the room. A faded chalkboard, Vietnamese writing, arrows, grid maps, orders, routes, supply lines, and then something else. A carved wooden crate, unlatched. Inside metal glints. Hanley's breath catches. Are those? Keller finishes the thought. RPG warheads? Sir, they were stockpiling for an assault. The scale suddenly makes horrific sense. These tunnels weren't just hiding a few guerrillas. They were staging grounds, launch points, a subterranean supply chain capable of mobilizing hundreds. Keenan walks toward a narrow side tunnel branching off the command post. Strange markings line the wall. Red paint circles, triangles. He crouches. Sir, is this a code? Twitch nods. Navigation symbols. They use these to move medics, ammo runners, and units through the maze. Keenan stares deeper into the corridor. Where does it lead? Twitch listens. The air feels different down here, cooler, emptier. A faint draft brushes his face. Downward. Probably second level. Hanley lowers his voice. How many levels could there be? Bishop answers in a grim whisper. 3 for sure. Some reports say 4, maybe 5. Keenan exhales. We could spend weeks down here and never see the same tunnel twice. Twitch turns to him, eyes hard. That's the point. Suddenly, a faint vibration hums through the floor. The lanterns hanging from the chamber's ceiling sway. Keenan stiffens. Did you feel that? The vibration comes again, stronger. A soft rumble. Dirt shakes loose from the ceiling. Keller crouches and places his hand on the packed clay floor. His expression turns cold. Sir, something's moving down here. The chamber goes silent. Hanley raises his pistol. Keenan tightens his grip. Twitch listens, eyes narrowed. Footsteps, distant, echoing, coming from below. A lot of them. January 13th, 1967. Cu Chi District, South Vietnam. The chamber trembles again, just enough to send a shiver through every man crouched inside it. Keenan's flashlight flickers as tiny grains of dirt spill from the ceiling. Twitch leans forward, pressing his ear to the ground. The sound isn't random, it's coordinated. Rhythmic, dozens of boots moving in unison across packed clay. He whispers, that's a unit, not a patrol. Lieutenant Hanley signals everyone to kill their lights. Flashlights click off one by one until the chamber sinks into absolute blackness, so thick and oppressive that the men feel the dark pressing back against them. Only the muffled thumping from below breaks the silence. Sergeant Keller steadies his breathing. Captain Bishop, if that's a battalion element, they could be moving right under us. Bishop nods, eyes wide, even though no one can see them, or they're coming up toward us. For a moment, the only sound is the low rumble of movement underfoot. Then voices. Soft, urgent, speaking Vietnamese. Close. Hanley raises a clenched fist, signaling everyone to freeze. He slowly draws his .45, but in the pitch-black chamber, even the gentle scrape of the pistol against his holster sounds thunderous. A dim glow flickers from deep inside the adjoining side tunnel. Not a flashlight. A lantern. Keenan's heartbeat thunders in his ears. Footsteps approach, slow, cautious, methodical. Twitch whispers so quietly it's almost breath. Sir, we need to fall back. These tunnels amplify sound. They know something's off. Hanley considers retreat, but the vibration under their boots is growing stronger. More voices, more footsteps, coming from multiple tunnels now. They're being surrounded, underground. Keller grips his rifle. Sir, they're sealing us in. Hanley snaps a hand toward the main shaft. Move. Now. The team slips from the command post chamber and into the narrow tunnel leading back toward daylight. They crawl on elbows and knees, equipment clattering softly against the walls. Keenan looks back once and sees it. A faint gold glow filling the command post behind them. Shadowed figures emerging. He breathes out. Sir, they're in the room. Twitch curses under his breath. Move. Suddenly, a sharp metallic click echoes through the tunnels. Then another. Keenan freezes. Tripwires. Too many to see, too many to avoid. Twitch places a steady hand on Keenan's shoulder. Nobody moves. Let me trace it. He works by touch alone, fingers lightly brushing the nylon line strung across the tunnel. It's taut and angled slightly upward. Standard VC anti-personnel setup, likely connected to a Chi-Com grenade or a tiger trap. But then Twitch feels something odd. 2 wires. Parallel. Higher tension. A compound trap. He mutters they expected an incursion. They rigged this corridor for a mass kill. Hanley, crouched behind him, whispers urgently, "Can you disarm it?" Twitch inhales slowly through his teeth. Maybe, if they aren't watching. But as he works, new shadows spill into the chamber behind them, reflected off the faint lantern light. Vietnamese boots scrape the clay floor. A voice barks an order from the command post. They've been found. Keenan draws his pistol, breathing hard. "Sir, they're coming." Hanley glances both directions. Forward is blocked by traps. Behind them, enemy soldiers are closing in. "We hold until Twitch gets it clear," he orders. Keller and Jensen rotate backward, raising their rifles in the cramped corridor. There's barely space to aim. Even firing a single round risks a ricochet or cave-in. But they ready themselves anyway. A figure appears in the glow, partially silhouetted. Rifle raised. Keller whispers, "Target." Hanley whispers back, "Hold. We don't fire unless they do." The figure steps closer. Breathing echoes in the confined space. Sweat drips into Keenan's eyes. Twitch's fingers tremble over the wire. Then a voice rings out sharply from the chamber. A command. Not to fire. To close a hatch. Wood slams against clay. The sound reverberates down the tunnel. They're sealing exits, Twitch hisses. "They're gonna trap us." Keller's jaw clenches. "We've got to move." Twitch makes his choice. He cuts both wires simultaneously. A long, suffocating second passes. Nothing happens. No bang, Keenan whispers. Twitch nods. Go. The team surges forward, scrambling past the disarmed trap. Boots hammer packed clay. Breaths come ragged and panicked. Behind them, Vietnamese soldiers shout and give chase. The tunnel tilts upward. A faint glow appears sunlight from the surface shaft. "We're close," Bishop calls. The echo of enemy boots grows louder. Closer. Keenan feels fingers brush the back of his boot, someone grabbing. He kicks free, lunging toward the rope. Up, 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 Hanley orders. One by one, the men scramble toward daylight as rifle fire erupts below. Bullets crack into the clay walls, showering the shaft with dust. Keenan bursts into sunlight, gasping hard. Keller follows. Then Twitch. Then Bishop. Hanley is last. He climbs fast, feet slipping on the rope as more gunshots roar from below. Bishop and Keller grab his arms, hauling him the final few feet. Hanley rolls onto the surface as the ground beneath them vibrates again, this time not from footsteps, but from something else entirely. A deep, booming thud echoes from within the shaft. The VC just detonated a charge. A plume of dust erupts upward as the tunnel mouth collapses. The earth seals itself shut. For a moment, no one speaks. They lie sprawled in the humid jungle air, coughing, blinking through sunlight they weren't sure they'd see again. Keenan finally whispers, "Sir, if that's just one section of Ku Chai." Hanley stares at the collapsed earth. Then God help the men fighting above it. May 2nd, 1968, Vinh Quang, Tri Province, North Vietnam. The soil here is darker, wetter, colder. The air carries the heavy scent of the sea drifting in from the Gulf of Tonkin. And unlike Cu Chi, where American patrols carve paths above the tunnels, Vinh Moc lies deep within North Vietnamese territory, a stronghold untouched by U.S. ground forces but battered relentlessly from above. For months, B-52s have hammered this coastline, turning forests into craters and villages into rubble. But still, the bombs miss what truly matters. Because Vinh Moc is not on the surface. It is beneath it. First Lieutenant Harold Grant of Navy Intelligence steps off a mud-caked jeep as dusk settles over the countryside. He's escorted by Captain Phan Truong, a defected ARVN officer who studied North Vietnamese fortification tactics before the war fractured his loyalties. Grant adjusts his glasses, staring at the hillside. "Captain, there's nothing here. Not even ruins." Truong nods slowly. "Yes, that's what they want you to think." The hillside looks untouched, just a wall of red clay and ferns. But as Truong pushes aside a curtain of hanging vines, a small, unassuming slit in the earth reveals itself. Barely wide enough for a grown man to crawl through. "Entrance," Truong says. "One of many." Grant crouches, shining his flashlight into the opening. The beam stretches forward, swallowed quickly by darkness. "This is how they survived the bombings," Grant mutters. Truong gives a grim smile. "Lieutenant, they did more than survive." The two men crawl inside. Immediately the temperature drops. The noise of insects wind distant waves, gone. Silence grips them like a cold fist. The tunnel slopes downward at a steady angle. 30 degrees. 40. Grant's boots slip. He steadies himself with one hand against the clay wall. It is cool and smooth, reinforced with bamboo ribs every few meters. Truong speaks quietly behind him. They dug this with shovels, baskets, bare hands. After what feels like minutes in freefall, the tunnel levels out into a narrow corridor, illuminated by faint oil lamps. Shadows dance along the walls. Grant's breath catches. Children laugh somewhere deeper inside. Women speak softly. The clink of metal bowls echoes faintly. "Captain, this is occupied." Truong nods. "Yes, an entire village." They step into a small chamber where a woman sits stirring a pot over a clay stove. Two toddlers sleep on a bamboo mat nearby. She looks up without fear, nodding politely, then returns to her cooking. Grant whispers. "They live down here." "For years," Truong replies. 300 people. More. Generations. He gestures farther down the tunnel. "Come." They pass rooms carved directly into the earth living quarters, storage alcoves, sleeping chambers, layered with woven mats. In one, a man sharpens a knife. In another, two teenagers assemble crates of rifles. "The Americans bomb the surface every day," Truong says. "So they move the entire village underground." Grant stops at a larger chamber. His flashlight sweeps across two long wooden beds, sterilized tools, a lantern, bloodied cloth. A hospital. A 20-square-meter operating room carved by hand. A doctor steps out from behind a curtain, wearing a white apron stained red. He gives Grant a single cold glance before returning to his patient. Grant exhales. "This is organized. Fully functional." Truong nods. "This is only one level." They move deeper. The walls grow smoother, more refined. The tunnels widen into branching arteries, twisting and interlocking like a buried superhighway. Grant feels the air shift. Fresher, cooler. A distant rumble grows louder. He freezes. "What is that?" Truong smirks. "Come see." They round a bend. The floor slopes downward again. The walls widen, forming a broad passageway. Grant hears it clearly, now a steady roar, like ocean surf in a cavern. The tunnel opens into a massive chamber with a vertical shaft rising through 40 feet of earth. Light pours down from above. Grant's jaw drops. This is a ventilation tower and an exit to the sea, Truong says. Hidden in the cliffs. A narrow passage to the right slopes toward the sound of breaking waves. Grant realizes what he's seeing. They're moving supplies to the coast. Fishing boats, maybe even gun runners. Truong nods. Yes, and wounded are ferried out the same way. Even artillery shells can be moved through here. Grant stares back at the massive ventilation opening. It's reinforced with stone, concrete, timber. It must have taken years and entire battalions of manpower. How deep does this go? 3 levels, Truong says. 4 if you include the emergency tunnels. Bombs cannot reach them. Even direct hits only collapse the first meter of soil. Grant exhales slowly. We've been bombing ghosts, shadows. They're fighting a war in a world we can't see. Trong steps closer. Lieutenant, down here it is not shadows. It is a nation. Grant turns toward the sound of waves echoing through the tunnels. The realization hits him with crushing weight. Cu Chi was a battlefield beneath a battlefield. But Vinh Moc is an entire civilization carved into the bones of the earth. No wonder we could never break them, Grant whispers. Not unless you're willing to fight underground, Truong replies. Grant's flashlight trembles in his hand as he takes in the enormity around him. The tunnels seem infinite, stretching into utter blackness filled with lives, weapons, orders, determination. This was not just survival. This was strategy, a subterranean war. And America had never trained for it. May 3rd, 1968. Vinh Moc tunnels, North Vietnam. Lieutenant Grant wakes in the darkness to the faint sound of footsteps padding along the corridor. Not marching gentle, purposeful strides. A woman carrying a woven basket passes him, nods politely, and continues on toward one of the lower chambers. She moves with the ease of someone who has lived her entire life underground. Grant rubs his eyes. Captain, how long do they stay down here at a time? Truong, already awake, tightening his boots, replies, weeks, months. Some children here have never seen the sky. The thought sinks into Grant like a stone. The air down here feels different, cooler than the Cu Chi tunnels, fresher thanks to the sea shafts. But it also carries the heavy undertone of permanence of a society built to endure anything. Voices echo faintly from a nearby hall. Not military cadence, something softer. Singing. Grant and Truong follow the sound until they emerge into a large circular chamber. Nearly 24 villagers sit on woven mats as a teacher, hair tied back, chalk in hand, assists several children writing Vietnamese characters on a smooth slab of stone. Our school. Underground, Grant whispers. This is how they defeated us. Not with firepower, with endurance. Truong nods. They built lives where bombs could not reach. You cannot destroy what has no surface. As they watch, the tunnel trembles slightly, dust drifting from the ceiling. But no one panics. No one even glances upward. Another distant bombing run another minor shock through the earth. To these people, it is background noise. A nurse enters, signaling to a man seated near the school chamber. He rises and follows her deeper into the tunnels where Grant and Truong eventually catch up, drawn by the metallic scent of antiseptic. The hospital is active again. A wounded soldier lies on the long wooden bedshirt, torn open chest, wrapped in bandages soaked through. 2 nurses work over him with steady hands, while the doctor from the previous day mutters instructions. Wounded from the DMZ, Truong whispers. They moved him all the way here under the earth. Grant stares. The soldier's uniform is soaked with mud, sweat, blood, but his eyes remain hard-focused, burning with a fierce determination. He whispers something in Vietnamese. Truong translates quietly. He says he will return to his unit. Grant blinks. He can barely breathe. And yet he will return, Truong replies. Because down here, war is not a campaign. It is survival. They move on, entering another tunnel where several villagers are carving new support beams from bamboo shaping and curing them beside small clay ovens. Reinforcement for expansion, for repairs, for generations yet to come. Grant speaks softly. How far do these tunnels reach? If you walk long enough, Truong says, you may enter Laos. Grant stops dead. Laos. You're telling me this is part of the Ho Chi Minh Trail? Branches of it, Truong replies. Arteries, capillaries. The entire region beneath your maps is alive. Grant imagines it millions of miles of interlinked pathways, secret roads beneath mountains and jungle supply lines immune to airstrikes. A world invisible to satellites, to reconnaissance, to American war doctrine. No wonder the conflict dragged on. No wonder victory seemed to slip through fingers. Suddenly, a horn echoes through the tunnels. Low, resonant, urgent. Villagers freeze for a moment, then move quickly, but calmly. The nurse guides children toward lower levels. Men gather tools. Women gather baskets of supplies. The tunnels fill with motion. Grant turns to Truong. "What's happening?" "A bombing raid," Truong says. "Close this time." The earth shakes harder than before. The oil lamps flicker. Dust sifts down like falling ash. The shock wave rolls through the tunnel. The ground hums. A deep, terrifying groan pulses through the walls. Grant braces himself with one hand against the clay, and after a moment, it stops. The villagers continue their tasks almost immediately as if nothing happened. Children laugh. Tools resume clinking. The tunnel breathes again. Grant exhales shakily. "Captain, this isn't a hideout. It's a fortress." Truong nods. "A fortress that moves, that endures." They climb back toward the surface entrance later that night, emerging into a warm wind blowing off the sea. The stars glitter overhead so bright they seem unreal after so long underground. Grant looks back at the hillside. The entrance is already sealed again. Invisible, erased from the world above. "How many such places exist?" he asks. Truong folds his arms. "Hundreds, maybe thousands. The war you see on your maps is not the war we are fighting." Grant stares into the night, the weight of realization settling like lead in his chest. America fought villages, battalions, jungle ambushes, but Vietnam fought with the earth itself, with tunnels that stretched like veins beneath the country, with hidden cities that no bomb could erase, with people who lived where fire couldn't reach, with armies that disappeared into the soil and emerged miles away. Grant whispers. "We never had a chance, did we?" Truong shakes his head slowly. "Not against a people willing to build a world beneath your bombs." The waves crash gently against the cliffs below. The stars shimmer. The war above continues. But beneath the soil of Vietnam, another war, older, quieter, deadlier, stretches on unseen and undefeated.